Analytics or AI and Analytics Saturday coming up on 25th April. And if you use at the registration the discount code of #1, then you can go there without having to pay for lunch. And yes, you will still get the lunch. Okay, next one. And there are 2 pre-cons, which are full day workshops. As I said, out of the 5 people, in the top 3 is Pinal Dave for performance tuning of SQL Server. He's having a full day workshop on that. The registration is available to us also on the SQL Saturday website, which also I will share with you as the day goes by. And then John Miner, the gentleman who you see on the screen other than me, he's going to be having a 1 full day workshop on Data Builder tool. And that is going to be on Friday, 24th of April. So these 2 pre-cons are on Friday, and they are not free. They are very nominally charging $200, including coffee, lunch, breakfast, okay, and afternoon snack. So please do go in if you get your budget from the company, get an approval, share all these informations with your friends in your IT circle or your Facebook or your LinkedIn. And these are some of the other like-minded free events that we have. SQL Saturday Sao Paulo, that's us over here, 425 Houston AI Analytics Day, and then so on and so forth. To get more information on these events, you can go to sqlsaturday.com or datasaturdays.com. Data Saturdays are almost always outside of USA. Okay, so I hope if you are in that area, if you can ever get out of any airports today, yes, you can definitely go ahead and make a vacation out of that too. And without much ado, my good friend John, this is where, John?
That's a while ago.
Yeah, I think this is 2019.
Yeah, last time we
At
had
in that
SQL Saturday
Mexican
in Rhode
restaurant.
Island.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. In that college, right?
Yeah, but that was, I think, the Greenwood Inn, tell you the truth. That's where we
But
had
I
this.
stole this from your Facebook, so
I know, it's
cool.
been a while.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so without much ado, and I think that's it from my side. I will stop the share, and I will
Okay.
keep on sending you information along the way today on the topics of various links, etc. So you can go ahead and register for that. Okay, but I will mute myself, and I will also turn off the camera.
Cool.
There is a chance that on my laptop, only when I'm using Teams, I lose internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
So if that happens, don't panic. John is there, Chin is there. They can
Just
take care
speak
of the
up.
situation. Yeah.
And if I hear you, I'll stop. But if not, I'll just continue like there's a full room and keep on talking. So again, if I apologize for yawning a little, it's been busy 2 weeks, 3 major events, and then I'm going to wrap up the month with another event. This is a new YouTube channel that I did. It's for my user group as well as any topics that I like talking about. One of the things I'm going to be talking about, and again, it's called 9 Data Muses because there's different areas in technology like SQL warehouses, SQL databases, not only SQL engines. If you've used Spark, it's distributed processing. If you used Event Hub, it's messaging, right? Serverless functions, automation languages, right? Reporting platforms and data modeling, just to name a few, will be some of the topics. But the reason why I'm pointing you here is that at the beginning of the month, there was a thing called Data Popcorn, and I did 3 videos for them, but they wanted me to cut them to 5 minutes. So if you want to learn more, go ahead and take a look at the full videos there. Okay, so again, please support me by joining this. Okay, it's 9 Data Muses, and it's on YouTube. Some other important things I want to talk about. GitHub. If you go to GitHub and type John Miner 3, okay, I give everything out there. There's a couple things I'll be talking about in the full day and probably be expanding on this, but there's 3 different projects. I created a open source project called Chinook. I also going to show you how to do some creating dynamic tables as well as security using DBT as well as Python models. But tonight what we're doing is introduction to DBT. It's this directory. So anything I'm sharing here you can find there, okay? Last but not least, 2 places where I've done a lot of blogging. I've did over 100 plus tips here, almost 120 on MS SQL tips. Most of this is Azure related, as well as Databricks, and last but not least, SQL Server Central. I've been talking about Fabric, so there's 32 articles there. So I'm well published. There's probably something that you might be interested in. Okay, so let's talk about tonight's presentation. And did I close? Looks like I might have closed by mistake my slides, so I'll bring them up again. So let's go here, here. Okay, so why am I talking about this? Well, this is kind of better than sliced bread. I've had a friend that's been using this for half a decade for a company, actually out of Houston. Okay, and I'm gonna make sure it's hidden the presenter view. Anyways, he's been doing this over 3+ years. Is it a small data state he has? No, he's doing it in Snowflake, 150 terabytes of data that's compressed. Okay, and he's deploying what we consider a model is just basically a table, 8,500 tables, okay, different schemas and different databases, but he has a huge data real estate, okay? So again, my name's John Miner. I'm a data architect for a company called Insight, okay? And this is only promotional I'll do for the whole night. And if you're curious, you can reach me at john.miner@insight.com if you have anything. Again, introduction to the data build tool. It's freeware, okay? And it's called DBT, okay? So what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to talk about a background. What are we, um, talking about? And I'm going to hide my video so you don't need to see me. That way I can have a sip once in a while, and then at the very end I'll turn my camera on, and then I'm going to put this back here, and there we go. So I'm going to talk about the background. How did this come about? I'm going to talk about how to configure VS Code. Now, we're also going to talk about materializing data. This is a very important thing to do in DBT. Going to talk about data quality. That's very important too. And last but not least, we're going to talk about producing documentation, okay? So let's click the next one. Concept. And I'm going to minimize this. Data Build Tool is an open source tool that helps engineers transform existing data within their warehouses. Now, everyone talks about ETL, ELT. Do we see any extracting and loading here? No, there isn't. That means, okay, that you have to use another tool such as Fivetran, metadata-driven pipelines, using Azure Data Factory, whatever you're using to get the data into the raw zone, okay, of your warehouse. Once it's there, okay, you're going to use a medallion layer architecture to move the data through, okay. What is DBT? Well, it's basically a framework. It's written in Python, and basically um, you define translations, right? I take something from raw, say dimensional table, it's a seed, and say I want to slowly change in dimension. You tell the tool, hey, I want to slowly change in dimensions. And the next time it sees a data record, you tell it, hey, what to compare against, okay, maybe the primary key, and the other fields as secondaries, the check, the data changes. And if it finds something changing, it automatically end dates the old record and creates a new one. So that's awesome, right? Where's the power in this, okay? And the power is target platforms, okay? There is many adapters. Tonight we're going to use Azure SQL Database, okay, in the cloud, but we can do anything, okay? Our DBMS could be Postgres, it could be Snowflake, I said, Databricks, Fabric Warehouse, they're all acceptable, okay? Let's click the next one. So how do we do this? We need to configure VS Code, okay? We need to install the Python language version 3.7 or above, okay? We need to add the adapter. So it's not only pip install, and the pip is package manager, okay? Install means to load it. DB core is the core one. We need the adapter. So for us, it's going to be SQL Server. And we need a local ODBC driver, okay? So my first demo, okay, I'm going to minimize this, is to get into there and actually run, this one says list ODBC drivers, okay? So let's do that. So I have to, in Insight, we're locked down really. So I have to basically To do anything that modifies stuff, I just need to do it through an admin window. And I was playing with this ahead of time when Paresh was saying, "Hey, John, come on," and I was like, "Hey, this one I wanted to get this demo to work. It's been a while since this one little piece, and I'll explain why it wasn't working and where it is and how I got it to work and blah blah blah." But anyways, we're going to go to Introduction to DBT, and we're just going to select the folder. So now it's going to change directories, okay? And we can see we have 3 SQL files, but let's bring up the ODBC one. This is very simple. If we run this, okay, and we do file run, okay, come on, I don't want to install it. Okay, why is this not working? There's always something going on, so let's do a new terminal. Okay, let's do Python, and let's do dash dash. One of the things we talked about is having a version of Python. So right there it says Python 3.7. Okay, so it's there. So I'm going to do file and start debugging. And what I'm going to do, it says install here and debug the currently active Python and change Python interpreter. So I am gonna do Anaconda. Okay, select it. Okay, and I did select it. And now if we run this again, always the demos don't work. Okay, so it finally ran it. And let's see what happens. There should be some output. Okay, there we go. So now what it's doing is this basically is saying, hey, guess what? Go ahead and run. And it ran and it looked locally and said, oh, you got SQL Server driver. Okay, that's great. But we want the ODBC driver for 18. That's what it used. Okay, there's a bunch of other drivers here. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to create a demo. Like I created that source project called Chinook, but it was kind of heavy, right? So I wanted to create a demo that wasn't so heavy. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And I notice a bunch of people on here. How many people are using Agentic AI? Is anyone using, GitHub Copilot? And if you are, so one person. Okay, you should be using GitHub Copilot. Okay, it's $10 a month and it's going to save you a ton of work. Okay, and I'm gonna
I can
this.
agree, John.
Oh,
I was given a stored procedure that was 3,000 lines long,
yeah.
and it was taking approximately 14 minutes to complete. I have it running now in under 23 seconds and only 393 lines of code. Thank you, Copilot.
Exactly. So GitHub Copilot rocks, okay? And there's many models out there. You can pick like Claude's the best one for coding, and you can do Sonnet and so on. So I'm gonna stop sharing my camera again, but I just wanted to point out if you're not using it, you're falling behind in skills, okay? And again, it's not 100% accurate. It's like 85, but if you give it the right prompts, it'll do a lot of work for you, okay? And we'll do a little example tonight, and I'm going to show you what I did and why, and then we'll get into DBT, okay? So I needed some sample data. I said, hey, how am I going to do that, right? And so I said, okay, let's create a new folder. And so this is my talks directory, right? So we're talking about introduction to DBT, and there is a data directory. So let's go to data, and I'm going to show you what I did. So the first thing I did is I said, hey, guess what? I want some data, and I want to create sample data for loans. Okay, it's a very simple, this is a library application. Okay, so I got members, I got books, and I got loans. And I said, create some data. Okay, and the question, oh, you're not seeing the screen, so I will share again. I probably did not hit the share, so thank you for telling me. And that's a little, how about now? You should be able to see it, correct?
Yes, sir.
My bad. And if that happens, please stop me anytime. Perfect. Okay, so now what I did is I said, hey, guess what? I want to create some sample data. And how do we do this? We just do file, and I'm going to show you really quickly how to do something similar, okay? And again, it's called prompt engineering, right? So we have to create a prompt. So we're going to do file. I'm going to new file, right? I'm going to do a Python file, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it some instructions. So I'm going to say, create a date, create a date dimension table, okay? Um, use make dates from, and what I'm going to do is it's suggesting it, right? So I'm going to tab this, okay? So it's telling me this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to, hopefully it doesn't do it, right? So I'm going to say create date dimension table. So I'm going to say Betty, I'm going to refine this, say use Python, right? Use Python. Create a date dimension table, make dates between these two dates, include these columns, right? And then write results to a CSV file. That's what I want to do. And I'm going to call name, and I'm going to call it Paresh's date dimension, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter. And what we do is we go here. Now this is our prompt, Control X. I'm going to get rid of it. And what I need to do is this is a Python one. So I'm going to go Control I. I'm going to paste it in here. Okay, this is my prompt now. And this is trying to give me all this stuff for suggestions, which I'm telling it, hey, I don't really want it. Okay, and I'm going to hit enter. And what it's going to do is it's now going to think, and it's going to generate a bunch of code. And it said, hey, guess what? Include pandas, include my date dimension, time delta, right? Start date, end date, give me a range, right? I'm going to create the pandas data frame, right? And then I'm going to write it to Paresh underscore date dimension, okay? And it's going to tell me how many rows, okay? I'm going to run this. So first thing is I need to accept it, which I haven't accepted. So I'm going to keep it. And then I'm going to save it, okay? So I'm going to save as, right? And we'll just say this is test, okay? So test.py. Hit enter. And now it saved it, I hope. Or it actually for some reason didn't take me. So let's rename this. So can I do it there? Maybe not. So hang on. Gonna move it way down here. I'm gonna close this. Gonna rename this. Come on, rename. Gonna call this test. Hey, it doesn't want. So I apologize again. I am on a laptop and usually I have a nice fat keyboard. Okay, I'm gonna call this test and let's call this for some reason. I messed this up too. So right here, I just want to create two CSV. I must have hit this and I'll just call this test.csv. Okay. So anyways, it wrote the whole program for me, right? And now I just hit file run. So run Python file. And I've been having problems with this. I'll start debugging. And Python debugger. Change interpreter. I'm going to pick the base conda again. Select Python interpreter. Now it's going to run. Okay. Okay. So did I mess something up? Probably did because it's very hard to do this. So escape. What did I do? Okay, so these are fine, right? That's fine. That should work fine, right? And 2 CSV, what does it say? It says da 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 da. Try this again. File. Okay, so now it's running. And guess what? It said here's the head of it and it created it. So now what we can do is we can minimize this and go back to folder. Right, and I don't know why this is the wrong one, but I'm going to select introduction, and it was data I was playing in, select folder, and I think maybe it's this the view, so Explorer, here we go, and here's my test, and if we click it and hit cancel, guess what? There's all my data, right? So very easy peasy, you know what I mean? Other than a couple of mistakes in my part, it did it, okay? So let's take a look at what I did. It's a little more complicated than what I just showed you, and how I got test data for this, okay? Because we need some test data. And like I said, DBT doesn't normally load data, but this is a toy database, okay? We're just gonna have loans, members, and books, okay? And let's look at the create sample data. There's a library out there called Faker, okay? And Faker just fakes dates. And basically I said, hey, give me books, members, okay, and loans. And it just created those. Perfect, right? Not only did I ask that, I said, guess what? Give me a diagram. And it created a diagram. Okay, so this is a a SVG diagram. It created that. I also asked it to create a date table like we just showed you. And guess what? It created a date table. Okay. So now I have my data. Okay. Let's talk about the very first thing for materialization, which is called seeding. Okay. So I'm going to bring up the deck. I showed you a little about Gentic coding and Gentic AI. And if you're not doing, like I said, please start looking at it because you're going to get left behind. Okay. Uh, so the library schema, I used AI to generate the tables, and I used AI to create CSV sample records, and I asked it to create this diagram. Okay, so it's great. So books, loans have books, right? And loans have a member initiates a loan, which is a book. So we have some very simple, some book ID, member ID, some primary keys, nothing big. Okay, so source and target. Okay, we're going to have an Azure SQL database as source, and we're going to initialize the project and talk about how to seed tables, okay? And I'm going to go back one and take a look. So we got Azure, we got this, and dbtc basically says, hey, take a CSV file and load it, okay? That's what's going to do, okay? So how do you start your first project? Let's do it, okay. What we want to do is change it to open folder, okay? And we're going to do library one, okay? And hit select folder, okay? Now to create a new one, a new project, I'm going to say later. And what we're going to do is, there was a few things I talked about. We talked about having Python, right? So if we do Python dash dash version, that's the very first thing we need to do. Also, we need to do pip pip show, and then dbt.core. This is going to tell us whether or not dbt.core is installed. And it is, okay?
Is that
And
a
we can
dot code or a dash code?
Dash core. Sorry about that.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't have my glasses on, so I'm doing this. And you can see that it uses Jinga, which is a template language, but it also has other adapters. Look, I've written about Databricks, I've written about Fabric, I've written about Fabric Spark. I can also talk to Postgres, Spark itself, SQL Server. So we're going to use the SQL Server. But if I didn't do it, I would say pip.install space dbt SQL Server. It would install it. Okay. Now, to create a new project, we just do dbt init, and that's it. I'm going to skip over that because it's so easy to do, okay? Now, what you want to do, there's a couple things we need to actually do, okay? And the very first thing is the profiles project file here, okay? And what I'm going to do is, let me stop sharing for a second. And and then I'm going to show it to you because I just didn't want you to see my password. That's all. Okay, not a problem because I just wanted to make sure it was the right passwords in there, and it is the right password because I'm going to change it after this presentation anyway. So, okay, so what is the profiles? Everything has a profile, and basically profiles is used to tell it how to connect, okay? So name our project, and again, this is a YAML file, okay? So there's certain things are YAML files, certain things are going to be SQL files, okay? Everything, there's directories in here, okay? So for instance, we have test directories, okay? Well, there's no test, right? We have a project file. We'll talk more about that in a minute. We have macros. This is empty. We have models. This is empty. We're using seeds, so we have our first 3 books without the date dimension, okay? We have a log. Okay, what does log do? Log just basically says, hey, guess what? Keep track of what I'm doing in the framework, okay? So what I'm going to do is I can delete this and it'll recreate it, which is awesome, right? So this is very convenient for maybe your company has, has to keep track of everything it does for auditing, right? You just keep the log, and if you run a Kubernetes container, maybe you copy the log off and ingest it somewhere else, and then you have a log of it, right? So again, we're going to work just with seeds today. And the very first thing we need to do is fill this out, right? So our target's dev, it's a mnemonic. It gets repeated here. SQL Server, very specific. The driver name, very specific. Oh, let's look. This, okay, is the library. So let's hit no changes to the test, okay? And let's just, I don't like it, right? So I'm gonna go for broke. And what we're gonna do is go into Fresh likes doing this at his company all the time. Drop database, right? Just joking. And it's gonna do drop database. Okay, and we're just gonna do library. And this is basically gonna just drop the library, and we're just gonna recreate everything from scratch. So I'm gonna execute it. Okay, so again, let's look at security. So I have this login, got a bunch of them, but I got this two we're gonna create, okay? And right now it's dropping the database. Okay, cool. Now let's open up, hit no, let's open up our first file. So we're gonna open up our first file, and this one's created, okay? So if you haven't seen this before, we can do drop database exist, that's what I did. And then this very first one says, hey, create it. It's a general purpose, and the service level, it's serverless, and it's a Gen 5 compute with 4 virtual cores, okay? So I'm gonna run this. It doesn't take too long to create the database. Now the power of this is that you can rebuild everything from scratch, or you can do incremental loads. You can do slowly changing dimensions. You can do column store tables. You can do regular tables. You can do views. You can do materialized views if they're supported, which SQL Server doesn't support, okay? And so on. So once this is
But
done, go ahead.
it's taking its time.
It is taking its time. And it might be because I just dropped it and it's trying to figure out, hey, is it really dropped? Maybe it was in a queue to drop, it wasn't really dropped, and now it's trying to find some compute to deploy it again. And again, remember I'm in the West Coast, this is the East Coast, so that's where it's located. So what I'm gonna do, it actually finally showed up, hit refresh, and now we have one, but guess what's empty? Well, this is my service count. I need something to connect to the database, okay? And so we can look at users and there's no user. So what we're gonna do is gonna create a user, because I already got the logon. Whoops, wrong place. So I'm gonna move it over here. And let's execute this again. And now we have a user, right? And if we click here and we hit refresh, come on, still thinking. Okay, there we go. And then hit refresh. That's not liking me. Just trust me, it's probably gonna create the user eventually. Hit refresh, here we go. And now users, and now we have a user, okay? Now I need to give it some access, right? So I could just give it data reader, data writer. I could give it owner if I want to create some tables, whatever. So I'm going to do these three, okay? So now it has rights. Let's go back to the project. So project is here, okay? And we can see that there's 3 files I want to load, right? There, books has 25, 25, and is 100 loans, okay? Let's look at the DBT project. Okay, what does this mean? This project tells it how everything's laid out in these folders. Okay, like I haven't done anything yet. Logs is empty. And it says, hey, what's the name? It's library. Profo's library. So this tells me I got to use this information to connect. Okay. Paths. This tells me, hey, models is on the models and so on. What is analysis path? That's like queries that you want to give to your, persons that using this, like, data based developers or modelers to say, hey, these are sample queries. Test paths, these are tests, custom tests. We'll talk about that. We know the seeds are here. Okay, macro paths. Macros are used for backward compatibility. And what I mean by that is dates between every system is different. So if I want to deploy to SQL Server and Fabric, we would use macros and call those macros so that when it was deploying to SQL Server, it know the syntax to use versus if it's deploying to Fabric, it would know the syntax. And snapshots, this is where we have our 3 files, okay? Now, when I hit the clean command, it just cleans up these 2, okay? And we're telling like, okay, one of the things I did not show you is this. Profiles, you give it a scheme. schema is here, right? Data. But data gets appended to whatever you say the scheme is here. So if when I load anything for seeds, it's going to go into data underscore raw. If I do snapshots, it's data underscore snapshot. And see, I'm saying column store is false. If I do models and it's staging, then guess what? The default is going to be a view versus this is a table, right? And then marts, I'm going to have tables and I'm going to have column stores, okay? So let's do the very first command you're going to do. The first one is, hey, can I even connect? I don't know if everything's right, right? So we hit a dbt debug. And what's that's going to do is going to test your connection, okay? And it says, of course, now I blew something up, I bet you. One check failed. It says, following reason, what does it say? Not found. It says DBT project file not found. You know why? Because I'm in the wrong directory, right? I'm supposed to be in library 2 and somehow I changed library directories. Okay, so let's do this. Library dash v1, and let's try this again. And one more debug, and this should work now. Okay, so let's look at what it did. It said, hey, this is my server. This is the database. This is schema. This is my user ID. I'm using SQL authentication. I'm trusting the certificate, and guess what? It connected and said everything worked. Awesome. Now, there's two ways to do things. You can do DBT seeds, or you can do one at a time. So if I want to do DBT seed, and I did dash dash select, I can say, hey, I just want to run one, right? And this is called instantiating the model, right? So I'm going to run just books, and books is going to create a new table called underscore books. And it said, hey, inserted 25. And if we look, okay, I'm going to close this. And now we go to tables and we hit refresh. We're just loading. Now, again, do not use seeds, okay, for big tables, okay? This is just for dimensions, okay, very small stuff that doesn't change. But now if it's thinking, and we do select 1,000 rows, and again, I'm using my hotel's Wi-Fi, so I'm happy that's just working. And there's 25. There's another way to execute, okay, and build models, okay? And the other one is, guess what? This is a directory. And you can say just run the whole directory. So now I can go here. And by default, I don't even have to give it a directory because it knows it's the seed directory, and snapshots knows the snapshot directory. Any run command, which is under models, might have multiple directories. You have to give it what you want to run. And guess what? It inserted 25, 25, and 25. Okay. So now if we go back, we should have two more tables. Okay. So we have two more tables, and we could query those if you want, but trust me, there's data in them, okay? Let's go back to here and talk about the command line. Okay, so again, they have a version of this called DBT Jobs, and it has a GUI in Fabric, and they're working on it right now. I met with the product group, and there was bugs in the GUI, and they're fixing them, such as, like, for instance, say we had that snapshots, right? Or the seeds, you would have to like check each seed to run. Well, that's fine if you have 5 tables, not fine when you have 20 tables that are dimensions that are static. Or if you have to check all the models, and say in the mart you have 50 tables for your dimensional model, guess what? I don't want to click them all. I just want to say run the whole directory, okay? So we'll get into that. So the run command is for running directories. The test command is for testing data quality. The seed command I already showed you just loads up CSV files. Snapshots, that's your slowly changing dimensions, okay? There's a thing called freshness, and if you come to my pre-con, you will learn about freshness. You can say, hey, guess what? Fail or notify me if the data is too old. The build just builds the whole thing, and documentation. If you do it right, the documentation's built in, okay, which is awesome. Okay, so let's talk about materializing data, and there's many different ways to do it. You can see DBT materializations in the middle. Table, what's the benefit? It's physical data storage, faster data retrieval because it's basically physical, right? A view. Well, it's based on a table SQL, and basically it's slower data retrieval, okay? Incremental. You want to use the incremental when you have large data. So for instance, maybe you're truncating the raw table each time you come in, or maybe you call it stage, and then you put the new one in and you want to incrementally load into the next zone. And you can tell it, hey, I want to append or do a merge action, okay? And again, that all has to do with the SQL, okay? Ephemeral. Well, ephemeral is like it sounds, right? It's not defined yet, right? Now, there's two ways to use ephemeral. Today, I'm going to show you how basically we're going to say, I haven't defined a date table yet, but I will in the future. Just use this one record as a sample and I'll fill it in later, right? It could be something like you're building something out and it's brand new and you haven't got all the products yet and you don't have the ability to reload products. You just put one in, the model will work and eventually going to go back, right? Last but not least, we talked about snapshots already and materialized views. It's not supported by SQL Server, but it's supported by other things like Snowflake, Databricks, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to escape, and next time we talk, it's going to be about testing data, but we're going to open up the next project, okay? Now, the cool thing about this, it's so easy to use. You can just, for lower environments, you can just tear things down and bring them back up, right? So on this one, we're going to drop all the tables and drop all the views. And now if I hit refresh, everything should come back. And it does. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the folder to library 2. I'm going to hit select folder. Okay, cool. This is not how I would do modeling, okay? I just want to say caution. You're going to say, hey, John, why'd you do that? And it's like, this is almost like the poo-poo platter. I want to show you everything you can get. But this is not how I would normally do something, okay? This is like, hey, by the way, I want to show you things. And then version 3, when we go back, we're going to do it the way it should have been, okay? But this is teaching you stuff, okay? So now we can see we have seeds, and we have 4 seed files. We also have a snapshot for members, okay? And then we have our mart, and we have our stage. So let's delete this log again. So delete it so we can use it. Okay. Now remember, the very first thing is we want to do we're in the right directory, so it's library 2, and we just want to do dbt, right, and debug. That's the very first command that you should use all the time. Now you can have multiple profiles in the debug. I meant the profile command, meaning that if you looked at this, oops, did I do it? It wasn't there, db, and then profile, see master. I could have a connection for connecting to master versus connecting to library. And if I ran that, it would connect me to master and any projects or stuff I'd run on master, okay? I'd create a separate project for that, okay? But first thing is we have seeds, right? So let's load all the seeds. So we're just going to go dbt, seeds, and I'm not going to select any, I'm just going to run them all, and we'll take a look. I think it's seed without an S. Okay. And this should load 4 tables. 3 of them are going to have 25 records, right? And one's going to have like a bunch of years. So this one had 1,400 records, which is 1 plus year. This one has 25 and 25, okay? So now if we go back here and close this and hit refresh, we can see already loaded. So now we have books, dates, loans, and members, okay? And if there's any questions, please holler. Okay, so the next thing we can do is we got the seeds done, okay? We have snapshots. Let's take a look at snapshots. How does snapshot work? Well, snapshot says This is based upon members 01. Well, members, if we look, is coming in from seeds. So it says snapshot strategy. There's two types. There's a check and there's also a date, okay? And what I'm doing is I'm saying check on this unique key, this ID, and if there's a match, then what I want to do is I want to check all the columns. I want to look at name, email, join date, and stats. If it changed, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a slowly changing dimension type 2, okay? And so this is a snapshot. So the very first time we create the snapshot, it's just going to fill it out, right? So let's go ahead and type dbt snapshot, and we're going to get some additional tables for this, okay? I meant columns, and the columns are going to be for the slowly changing dimensions. Now, snapshots, we usually call them, right, end dating, right, because we have a begin date and an end date. So anything that's new or the most up to date, okay, has an end date of null because it's still active, right? Anything that has an end date, say yesterday, would be not null. So see right here, these are all null. So this is brand new data. It says it's active, right? Now we could go ahead. I'm going to show you an example in the future. If we make a change, then suddenly this will be different, right? So let's see if we can do that. Let's open up that. Testing. Okay. So snapshots. Now what we can do now is if we select from raw member 01, which we have, this is what we brought in, has a record called expired. Well, maybe this person came back to the library and now they're active, right? So we're going to update it. Okay. If we look at the snapshot and we run from 01, it didn't do snapshot. And what, can anyone tell me why nothing happened? Any guesses? The reason why nothing happened is because remember, this is a framework. We need to run the snapshot again, right? It needs to go and say, hey, look at where it came from. This one happened to be Siege, right? It's referencing here, but it could have been referencing anything, right? And
So
we're
there is a
saying,
question, John.
yep. And what's the question?
So one is like, do you have to reinitialize the snapshot? And earlier, Rishi also asked if we're gonna be having access to these code files.
What do you mean? The ones I'm showing you right now? So anyways,
Yeah.
yes, the ones I showed you right now at the very beginning talk, and you might have been late. If you go to GitHub, okay, John Mayer 3, and do a search, okay, you're going to get my community work, okay? And what happens is you just go down to Introduction to DBT, and you have everything I'm showing you tonight, okay?
Can you just take that link and post it here, John,
I will do that also.
for old people like me? Yeah. Thank you.
I'm an old person too.
Right.
Getting older every day, they say.
Yeah.
And the second thing is what you asked for is the reason why this didn't work, okay, is because we have to run the process again. I changed, okay, the data, okay, in this table right here. I went ahead and said, hey, update members 1, but for it to take the data from members 1, bring it into the snapshot, it needs to compare members 1 against members 3, see if there's a difference, and date it. And again, what does this mean? Okay, John joined Insight, say, and this is reality, 8.5 years ago. When John started, he was an architect 1. Now I'm a senior architect, so that's 2 levels higher. Okay, there's effective date in which John was a architect 1. It was when he joined the company, October 31st, 2017. And let's say it was through, October 31st, 2020. Okay, that is the effective date in which John had that title. When he got promoted, which was November 1st, say, of 2020, he was an architect level 2. And if he was still an architect level 2, then his end date on that record would be null. The other one would be within that period, right? So we haven't run the process yet to update this. So what we do is we just run snapshot again, and it's going to fix it for us automatically. Okay. And again, whatever it does, you can trace the SQL it's generating and running in a log. Okay. But the proof's in the pudding, right? So now if we come here and take a look at it, we can see that the one that was expired has been updated, okay? And again, it's the same day. This is a bad example, but you can see that I started talking about this 47 past, right? And now at 51 past, which is what, 4 minutes later, I changed it and dated the expired and made the new one active, okay? So that is how snapshots, which are slowly changing dimensions type 2, work, okay? Let's look at the other ones. We have books.sql01. What was that doing? Now this curly brackets, this is the Jingle language, okay? And you can look it up. It's a template language. But this one's saying select star from, I don't care where books.01 is, but in reality, books.01 is data underscore raw dot books.01. So it's smart enough to figure out the prefix and put it together. Okay, so, and I'm saying, guess what? I want a table and put it in stage. So now to run this, we can't just hit command. It's a command line driven, right? I'm going to do dbt, and we talked about how we can do run because this is all in the models, right? And I'm going to do S, right? And then dash, and then select. And I'm just going to run this one. So it's books. I'm typing wrong. 02. Okay. Excuse me. So again, what is this doing? It's just creating a copy. That's all this is doing. Again, this is just a weird example. I told you at the beginning, this is all for demonstration purposes. This wouldn't be how I model, but I just need to show you all the pieces, okay? So now, if we look here and we select, okay, we can see that we'll have 25 records because we haven't done anything different, okay? Just a copy. Next one, dates 02. Ooh, this is incremental. And then there's date 03. This is your ephemeral. So let's run date 03. Okay, and then we'll go back to date 02. So we're going to do select, and we're going to do dates. Oops, come on. Can't type tonight. Okay, there we go, tab. Okay, so I run it, and it's running it. Okay, and I go here, and I hit refresh. And what did it do? And the answer is nothing. Because it's ephemeral, means that's a placeholder, okay? I can only use it in a model in the next stage, okay? So we'll show you that in a minute, okay? Date 02. So this one says, if is incremental, this is a special one, it says incremental, select from reference date 01. If it's incremental, which it is, right? Then when the ID, okay, of the target, which is the date 02, is greater than equal to the max ID from this table, which is 02, and this was 01, then bring it in. So it means bring in anything that has the next ID, right? And basically everything has IDs. So let's take a look at it. So we go to dates, raw. And again, for some reason, it must be going slow. We can do this. We're going to show the top 5. Okay, so we can see it's the end of the year. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is we haven't created this yet, date 02. So we need to run that the first time. Okay,
Hey,
first
John,
time we run, yep.
5 minutes.
You want me to cut it 5 minutes, or do you started late?
Okay, so we'll say 1 minute. Okay, 5 more minutes. I mean, I don't mind you hanging around, but just people, so you know, we
Yep,
do follow times, but if the
yep.
speaker and the people don't mind, then yes, we can definitely continue. So,
Okay. Well, like I said, the problem is I need about 15 more minutes. So if you can hang that much, I can show you everything. If you don't, then you can move on.
so
So,
yeah, saying is that please, guys, remember John is conducting a full day workshop on the same topic
yep,
here in person in the Microsoft Office on 24th April. And I already sent you the link about that earlier. So if you want to go ahead and register for that, you're more than welcome. But continue, John.
definitely. And I'll try to wrap up. So this next one is an incremental. So what the incremental is doing is saying, hey, I ran it the first time, right? So now if we hit refresh, we get a full table from 0 to 2. So if we do the top here, okay, there's a full table and there's 1461, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna insert 1, okay? And to date 01, if I run date 02, because I haven't run the process, it hasn't showed up, right? So the idea is on large data, we have to worry about loading everything, right? And so what we're gonna do is I can run, this date 02 again, okay? And what's gonna do, it's gonna reload it, okay? And if we come back to the example, right, we can go into here and we can select from this one. And what's did, instead of bringing over the whole table, it just brought over one record, okay? So that's incremental. Let's see if we can get through the other ones and I'll wrap up in 10 minutes, okay? So we've done these three. What's member zoo? This one's a materialized view. It's a view of not materialized, so it's just a view. So if we create this one, we'll run members 3, so dbt, and then run, and then select, and then what we can do is we can say members, right, 02, and if we run this is just going to create a view, and then we're going to do row counts, and I'll show you that one too. The one row counts 02.SQL, we're not going to run that one because that's not going to work. And you can do also the full thing. The one with the dot taxes materialized view, that's not going to work, but this one's going to work. So these are two views, right? We did a view, member 02, and another view. So if we go over here, everything's been physical. Remember I told you one of the things you can do from materialization is views. There's views. Now if we look at the type, right, on the indexing, there's nothing there. There's no index. Let's do the mart, okay? So I'm going to blow out the mart, and this time I'm just going to say dbt, and hopefully they work, dbt dash run, okay, dash dash, and then what we're going to do, s, and then we're just going to do a mart. And that's going to run all the models in that directory, okay? That was one of the bugs. I will talk during the pre-con about all different targets, and you'll get a lot of hands-on stuff compared to what I'm doing right now. So it created everything. Now, if we hit refresh, okay, and again, this is for very large tables. We do column store, right? This is going to show you that, guess what, they're there. But now if we go to indexes, it created a column store index, okay? Cool. So let's go back to, so I'm going to skip over the details behind this, and during the actual pre-con, I will go over this. But what things we can test for? We can test if it's not null. And the problem is when we go into like Fabric Warehouse, it doesn't actually test for relationships. So we can do not null. We can say if the ID is unique. We can say, hey, it's a bunch of values. We can say it's a relationship. We can say it's even custom, okay? Click on. Now, the last thing is documentation. If we type dbt docs generate, right, you have to do some work, and I'll show you during that class how you can use agentic AI to take the tables and ask AI, give me some descriptions. And right here it said, hey, book ID is a book identifier, title is a book title, author is a author, so it's documented for you. It also tells you the data tests like unique, okay, not null, accepted values, okay? And if we do the server, it actually populates, okay? So before I end up with this, right, we're gonna do one more thing, and then I'm gonna show you how easy it is to tear it down, and I'll show you the final example. But we're gonna, like I said, I'm gonna, in this workshop, show you a lot of things you'll be an expert by the time we are done, okay? So let's close this one, and let's bring up the clear, and I'll show you the final model, and we'll call it a night. So this says clean it up. And what we can do now is we can go here and execute this. And this is going to clear everything out. So now if we hit here and hit refresh again, oops, everything's going to be gone, including the views, the tables, it's all cleaned up. Okay. And like I said, my friend is using this to manage 150 terabytes. You know Matt Battleon, Presh,
Yep.
and
In Rhode
he
Island,
works
right? Yeah.
he comes down to Houston once a month
Yeah,
to
I
work
reached
for.
out to him. He never responded. So I'm not a happy soul.
Oh, come on. The problem is he has a kid and he's a different
Yeah.
lifestyle than us, man. You
No,
know.
I can imagine. So I have a grandkid, so it works out to the same thing. But yeah, give me his number when you get a chance. I'll call
Sure.
him.
So now if we go like this and hit DBT build, this one's going to build this whole thing out, okay? And then this final one, what I said is snapshots are going to be these guys. Incremental, which is our fact, is going to be load incrementally, okay? And guess what? Our mart is going to be here. And these are actually doing lookups. Look, not only is it referencing it, okay, but if we look at the members, it's actually referencing it and then it's pulling it. See this ID? Well, this ID is the joint date key. So it's bringing in ID from another table, right? And it's also doing effective dating. Same thing with the facts. It's bringing up the other IDs. But the cool thing about this is you don't need to know anything other than a little Python, a little, VS Code, and basically what you've been doing for years. Like we've been doing SQL for years, right? And now if we hit refresh, okay, this is going to bring up all the tables and it's going to bring all the views. And like I said, you'll learn how to do a lot of things. We're going to be talking about different targets, and there's no views in this one because I chose not to use any views. But you could do like any views there. I didn't talk about data quality, but if there's any data quality issues we can do, we can see that this is our raw, okay? The raws, all three of them have been converted into snapshots, right? And then the stage is our incremental. And then we created everything into dimensions. So we got books, dates, members, right? So we had right here books, dates, and members, and the loans became our facts, okay? Let's wrap this up. So I'm going to go back to here and okay, one things I didn't tell you, but you're going to find out is that naming is really important, okay? And the reason why is that it uses something called a DAG, a directed acyclic graph, okay? And so it's really important to know that. Also, one of the things I didn't show you is how to use properties and schema files to actually provide that documentation as well as data tests, okay? We showed you most of the ways to materialize data, okay? And I didn't go over the example, but you show the output of how to create documentation. And basically, in short, DB2 makes it easy to build out data models, okay? And like I said, my friend Matt, here's the Chinook sample I did. Here's the SQL Server adapter you need to download. Here's the warehouse, and here's the new thing what is DBT jobs? Right now, what I showed you is you can manage the whole database using VS Code and manually doing it, but that's not something you want to do, right? And at this big gas company, you know what they do is they deploy from GitHub, okay, a Kubernetes container, and they run this code on the Kubernetes container on a schedule, okay? And all that logging they have on that Kubernetes container, as well as the timing of the jobs, right? But that means you have to build out infrastructure and be smart enough to know how to do Kubernetes containers. What Microsoft Fabric is doing is they're coming up with a managed service called dbt Jobs. It's a competitor to okay, dbt Labs. dbt Labs has a managed service that does this also. And so very interesting stuff. But again, like I said, you still have to do EE. But once in your L to get it into your raw zone, I showed you how to cheat with seeding. But once it's there, guess what? You can manage everything with SQL. And it's documented. The problem, like I'm working on a project right now, Paresh, remember SSIS?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, our good old friend. By the way, one of my colleagues still uses it. So.
Exactly, but where's the information? Where's the transformation? It could be maybe I'm gonna stop sharing. It could be maybe a stored procedure. It could be code that's embedded in a C# program behind the scenes,
Mm.
right? In a task. It could be actually here document SQL that's right in the connection, right? So you're searching all over the place for stuff, and guess what? You can't find it easy. Guess what? This is all SQL files. You see it right
Mm-hmm.
there. It's very easy. So that's why I like DBT and a lot of people use it. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation.
Absolutely. That was really awesome, man. I'm usually finding it difficult to concentrate, but this one was much better for me. So I'm going to try and use it too. But there are three questions. I think one of them is from
Yep.
Rishi again, saying if I remember from the conceptual slide correctly, materialized views are real time and show updated data. But now in
So
SQL Server, we
materialize,
don't have materialized views, right?
we do, but they're not supported in DBT. The only way you can create a materialized view, but know what it's called? It's called a indexed, right? You actually create a index that is materialized, okay? And that index basically, because it's index and it's on a view, it becomes materialized, okay? So index views in SQL become materialized, but there's not a command called materialized view. Now, other languages like the SQL warehouse, which I haven't tried in Fabric, but I know that also Databricks support materialized views, and when you create it, it actually creates stuff. Now, what does it do for you, materialized view? If I say, guess what, I want to join employees to the salary table, and I give Paresh a raise, guess what? That view will have not only the employee data, but the salary data and have some most up-to-date data, right? It just updates it whenever the transaction hardens, right? What else does you have for questions?
Yes. I will tell
So
you the
single
other one was,
source. Yes,
yeah.
you can export to multiple sources, but you can do that with multiple projects, right? So again, I could have a DBT project running on a scheduler that would run on it. Again, this is not doing a EOL. The data has to be there already, but I could manage models in, say, my HR database, and I could manage models in say, a production ERP database, right? And guess what? There would be different connections and different projects, but I'm not moving data. The data has to be in the target first. It's just transform it by sending SQL across and saying, hey, create this table or look at this table versus the other one. Is there something that incrementally needs to be loaded? Then it just runs the code. And it looks
So,
like someone's typing, so.
yeah, it's Rishi, yeah. But this is really cool. Just guys reiterating his workshop is on the 24th, and the link for it would be here. Give me one sec.
Cool.
It's here.
Yeah, there's a
Remember,
lot of cool stuff you can do I didn't show you
mhm,
tonight. Like, for instance, different sources. Another thing we talked about is the ability to do different targets. Like if I'm doing a Postgres or say Oracle, the dates, how you deal with today is different than how you do it in SQL Server. So by coding a macro, you can say when using this database type, use this syntax versus this syntax. There's a whole utils library. There's a great expectations library that kind of checks things. So all
mm,
those things will be going over there, as well as I will give you introduction into Python, right? We'll do a little Databricks. And guess what? In anything that supports Spark, right, Python, and or Snowflake supports Python, we can run like pull the data in for addresses. I want to check every address against, say, Azure Bing. Now, Bing Maps has been moved to a service called Azure Maps, but we can call that and say, hey, get me the geolocations for every single address I have. Now I can geolocate my data. That's adding value to it without actually learning how to, like make REST API calls from SQL Server. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with DBT, and I'm excited about it. So I wish I had more projects using this because that SSIS, Paresh, oh my God, that's painful.
ah. So, anybody wants to ask a question, I can unmute you guys. Todd, this is really awesome. And Todd is our local guy here too. So he actually, believe it or not, just registered for the SQL Saturday too. So if anybody wants to
Strawberries.
ask a question, I can unmute you. Our other director, Olga, is also here now. Olga, you can say hello. And otherwise, let me stop.
Hello. Thank you for the great presentation. It was
Thank
really
you.
interesting.
Sorry, Olga, I didn't notice when you came in, but I'm going to stop the recording now.
Awesome.
And for people